Hey, Amber.
Hey, Alyssa.
Do you know what time it is?
Oh, I know what time it is.
It's time for another episode of The Growth Signal.
Yes, let's get into it.
Heck yeah. Welcome back to The Growth Signal, where we are throwing out the old playbooks and saying hello to a new future of customer experience. And I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend Alex. Alex, welcome to the show.
Howdy. Pleasure to be here. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I was trying to figure out, who I was going to reach out to come on the show and be part of this first real practical, tactical roll up your sleeves conversation.
Mm.
And you were the number one person at the top of my list
Ooh,
because
dang.
I know, lots of pressure. So, do what you need to do, roll up your sleeves, take a shot of water, whatever it takes. But I would love to have a conversation with you about customer success specifically, with your podcast and with all of the speaking and relationships that you have. What do you think is the one thing that's keeping from customer success professionals from having their Mondays back and taking back their Mondays?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I'm so glad that I made that list. I was kind of like, who else turned her down before she got to me?
You were actually my first outreach, so I was really pleasantly
Um,
surprised that you said yes.
but yeah, I'm rolling up my sleeves as we speak, and I'm not taking a shot of water, but I am drinking Earl Grey. So there's that. Um,
Perfect.
I think the thing there's this book that I often reference by Keller. Is it Keller of Keller Williams or Williams? It's Keller of Keller Williams. It's called The One Thing. And you don't really need to read the book to get the overall concept of it, but it's like, the whole concept is what is the one thing you can do like today, this week, this month to make everything else that you do down the road easier. And that is a concept that I like to use myself. That's a concept that I like to preach with the folks on my team and whoever I'm surrounded with, because there are those things that you do on a repetitive basis where if you put in like 10-20% extra effort to like templatize it or turn it into something that you can reuse and reutilize and remove that burden from you in the future the next time you have to go do it. I think that is one of the things that we're bad at as human beings in general. um when it comes to the core question though of like how can individual contributors take back their Monday, it's really in the prep work and the templatization and the tooling that you personally surround yourself with. I don't think it's so much a question of, hey, what tooling has the company provided for me, but like what tooling have you provided for yourself in the way that
Mhm.
you work? Because ultimately, you know, your leadership can provide some CSPs and some, all these great tools that we all hear about all the time. But a lot of times I find that the way that one person works isn't necessarily compatible with that system versus the way another person works. That compatibility is there. So, it's about taking ownership of that a little bit yourself.
So you just unlocked like a memory. I've read that book,
Yeah.
and like the whole concept of that we've glorified busy,
Mm.
and we've created a place where you get rewarded for looking busy but not actually being productive.
Yep.
And putting these systems in place, like, yeah, it kind of sucks to only do one thing. And I said to someone recently that I feel like the last several months of my life have just been working on a single PowerPoint. It's made a lot of, like, I've refined it a ton, I've done a ton of evolution, but when you're pitching to VCs like I am right now for TrueView, I'm literally just refining the same PowerPoint over and over again. I feel
Mm.
so uninspired by that because I'm just so sick of working on one thing, but it's an important one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And whatever that looks like for you, I mean, um, another example is I'm going through and doing some like billing audits of our accounts right now. And, it became it's like after you do it like 3 or 4 times, you're like, okay, this is the general process. So I'm going to write this down. I'm going to make a hell of a checklist out of it and go to town. But it's those little steps of like, documentation and, you know, um, templatizing and turning something into a lasting resource that I think is huge. And you can take that into any number of different facets, whether it be your customer facing documentation. Like if you're chatting with a customer about it, about something, you've got it recorded. I mean, use some AI and turn it into a knowledge base article, for crying out loud. Like those kinds of things are, it's interesting because in the moment, you're like, that's not going to make a huge difference. But if you do something like that at least once or twice a day, the cumulative effect is pretty massive.
It's really funny. I have a non-work example of this.
Uh-huh.
So I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old. And without fail, we do not get up very well in the morning. We do not move very quickly. And a couple of years ago, I started requiring my kids on Sunday night to put together their outfits for the entire week.
Yeah.
Like we have pants, we have socks, we have underwear, we have shirts, and we've thought about like the weather. We've looked at the weather, and every single week it is a little bit of a fight because they're fighting against their upcoming Monday. But it saves us so much time and stress in the mornings, and it saves me so much time and stress not having to run around and be like, "Oh crap, I'm so far behind on laundry. I don't have anything ready for them." So yeah, we work slow on Sunday. It takes, 30-ish whatever minutes if
Yeah.
we're behind on laundry, but it saves us so much time and anxiety the other 5 days of the week
Yeah.
that it's worth it to me to have that fight on Sundays about getting your clothes laid out.
Yeah, totally. I do very similar things. Like, the night before, I'll like fill the kettle with the water and, so it's ready to go in the morning. I'll, kind of do as much prep work as possible so that then the morning isn't a fight. And I approach my week that way too. Um, just something that works for me is I keep just a as we all do, running to-do list. And my to-do lists have migrated from 3 by 5 index cards, which just used to litter my workspace, to a general note-taking app. But what I'll typically do is keep like a weekly list and kind of knock stuff off of my weekly list. And then when I get to the end of the week, I will then kind of look at it because there's some dopamine involved in like seeing, okay, knock this stuff off. That's great. And then, I'll take probably 20 minutes, and I recommend this for everyone. Just, take 20 minutes and turn the things that you didn't get to into the start of next week's to-do list. And it may seem, maybe a little bit kind of demoralizing, but if you do that on Friday, after you've done, like take 10, 15 minutes and prep for the week that's coming up, uh, it, it allows you on Monday morning to go instead of like figure out what the hell it is you got to do for the rest of the day.
And honestly, sometimes remember what the heck you did last week. Like, what
Totally.
did I even do last week? I don't even know. Like,
Mm,
so if you've done that prep work, you've
yeah.
set yourself up to start strong on Monday morning.
Yeah. Cause if you're a CSM, I mean, you're talking to tons of different accounts and it's easy to get that stuff, the threads crossed and all that kind of stuff. And so really while you're in that mode, if you take that time to just really put a pin in stuff, A, it sets you up really well for Monday. B, it sets you up well for the weekend. So you're not having to think about the stuff that you might have missed.
Right, right. It's almost like giving yourself permission to put something on the shelf, right? I'm
Yes.
not going to think about it because I've already handled it and I don't need to worry about it until whatever time I start on Monday.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I love the individual use of artificial intelligence to do that kind of stuff. I mean, the biggest thing that I've found, okay, this is interesting. So last week I spoke at the Customer Success Collective event in Austin. And I had done a talk there the year before, and I asked the same question both kind of last year and this year, and the response was quite different, which was great. The question was, how many of you in the room actively use ChatGPT, for example, on a daily basis to help you with your stuff? And last year, when I asked the question, it was probably 20 or 30%. Like people just weren't using these tools just to help them on a daily basis. This year, it was probably like 80 or 90% were raising
Mm.
their hands. I don't know whether it was like out of guilt because they felt like that was the thing to do. But it was nice because to me it shows that people are actually finally starting to, I say finally, it hasn't been around that long, but people are starting to really adopt the daily use of things like ChatGPT and Perplexity because, honestly, like some of the stuff we're talking about, you can make literal minutes up for like I said that wrong. You can turn an hour's worth of work into literally minutes,
Hmm.
especially around this task list thing we're talking about. Because if you're feeding it, your call transcripts and things like that, you can grab those tasks out of there like super, super quick and give yourself quick reminders of what it is you need to do. Put that in your to-do list, and that'll set you up for success.
I'm an early adopter by nature, so
Yeah.
I've been using ChatGPT for what feels like a lifetime. Like when you're like, finally, I'm like, yeah, I know.
Mhm.
I've been, before it was a paid thing, you had a
Yeah.
pro plan,
Right.
right? I just actually recently came across Perplexity. I
Mhm.
did not know that. That's a really cool tool as well because then it's not like hallucinating facts or anything. You have like actual sources, which is great.
Totally.
Um, and for me, it's really what a lot of what you're saying. I have
Yeah.
to set up these systems to let my brain focus on the, 80% of the tasks that an AI can handle for me
Mhm.
so that I'm freed up for the 20% that literally only I can do.
Yeah.
Um, I've been having a conversation with a lot of people in this industry about there's AI, artificial intelligence, but we need to treat AI like augmented intelligence. It's making me better. It's not replacing me.
Correct.
I'm not, being replaced by an AI. I'm being augmented by an AI. It makes me X number of
Mhm.
hundreds percent better at what I'm doing because I'm not wasting all of my energy on small things, minutia, stuff that doesn't really matter.
For those of you out there who are like in solidly in the camp of it's just a matter of time until artificial intelligence replaces me. Um, Granted, there are certain I think there are certain roles where it's like probably more of a reality than like whatever.
Yeah.
We won't go down that rabbit hole. But if you're in CS specifically, let's say you're customer facing, you're in the business of creating lasting relationships with customers. The news flash is that customers are always going to want to talk to a human, right? Like there's no I don't really think there is a replacing the human behind the relationship building aspect of what CS does because ultimately that's what humans do. That's what we thrive on. And customers are always going to want to chat with a human. Does that mean that we can't, use some of this technology to, help, them answer questions with, large language models and that kind of stuff? That's totally fair game. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about dollars and cents and renewals and value outcomes and those kinds of things, they're always going to want to chat with a human. The trick is, using the artificial intelligence tools that we now have and are rapidly coming to market to make those conversations better, right? To make sure that the conversations that you're having are informed or powerful, full of insights and those kinds of things. And that's the trick of it. Getting there is still, I think, a little bit tough. And I know you're part of that solution, like solving for some of those insights, especially with what you're doing at TrueView. But I think ultimately, like, it's still just like this wild marketplace of AI tools that are all over the place, and it's super confusing. And so, when we start to see a consolidation of that technology, that's where really the rubber is going to hit the road.
There's a lot in what you've said there, and one of the things I wanna key in on is, using AI, and it has its place, right? So one of the things I'm seeing in the market is people are rolling out and deploying AI chatbots
Mhm.
without any kind of understanding of how it's impacting their brand.
Yeah,
Like, I just watched how many Super Bowl commercials, and those were carefully tested and carefully planned and
yeah.
carefully selected on, Matthew McConaughey is in this commercial, and he was chosen for a reason, and it was tested, and it was vetted, and it was thought about. And yet we're rolling out these chatbots that no one's really thought through, and yet they are your brand ambassador. And I
Mhm.
want that chatbot to answer those questions that, like we all get those emails of how do I log into my account? Like,
Yep.
I don't need to be responding to those. I don't need to be just support agent. I need to create value and build relationships. But we have to do it in a way that doesn't actually tarnish our customers' understanding and relationship with us. Because just because it's easier for you or maybe even easier for your customer, if it's not a great extension of your brand and what you want to be known for, then you are actually doing more damage than helping your customer
Yep.
achieve their outcomes faster.
Yeah, totally. I agree. That which is why my number one recommendation for people, specifically that are implementing chatbots, is like use it internally first, like as a tool for your support agents or whoever, so that they can like not only use it as a performance tool, but then also like gauge how good it is. Because if you put a stinker out there, it's just gonna hurt you.
It's so funny that you say that because I'm building a knowledge base
Yeah.
for TrueView right now with a chatbot, right? Because that's
Hmm.
the cool thing that everyone's doing. And again, early adopter, so I want to do like all of the new tech things. And I had my husband test it out, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't give him any of he's not in my industry, he doesn't really know anything about what we've got going on, and I gave him no guidance. I just said, "Hey, interact with this thing, tell me what you think."
Yeah.
And he asked it a bunch of questions, and I had set guardrails of like, if you don't know the answer, say you don't know the answer, right? And he kept asking questions that, in hindsight, were super reasonable and obvious, and I should
Yeah.
have thought of those questions too. But it kept saying, "I don't know. I don't know. I don't know." And I'm like, "Well, thank God I didn't deploy this because that would have been exactly embarrassing." His questions were good, but I was too emotionally close to our product and our solution that I
Yeah.
couldn't see the more obvious questions because, of course, to me, they're obvious. You would never
Mhm.
ask these. But to
Mhm.
him, they weren't.
Yeah. I think the cool chatbots out there, there's several there are several vendors who have really capitalized on that element of it, and are on the back end then making suggestions for the content that you're missing and those kinds of things, which is
Mhm.
super super cool. Um, and I think really when it comes to this stuff, you're really only limited in terms of your own imagination. Okay, like a couple examples, of things that I've done recently that that are just kinda cool and very helpful. Um, One is and it takes a little bit of, duct tape and paper clips to do some of this stuff, but, like, I created a Google News feed, for our industry. We're a vertical SaaS provider for the security guard industry, and so I created a Google News feed, RSS feed for security guard kind of latest news and trends and whatnot. And with Zapier, I'm feeding it into our Slack, into a specific Slack channel that just gives digests of like, hey, this is what's happening, in the industry. And that's super cool because you give your sellers or your CSMs kind of an insight into what's happening in the industry. And with specific, especially larger accounts, I think there's a lot of value in doing similar things as well to help you have those informed conversations. So when you're prepping for a QBR or whatever, you can go just sift through real quick and see, okay, are there news updates? And then you can take it a step further and have, artificial intelligence summarize all those things for you so that you don't have to go weed through articles and things like that. So it's all about that. I guess going back to the one thing, it's all about that kind of um, uh, you know, uh, uh, cumulative effect of those things that you start to put together and you start to surround yourself with to make sure that you're having super informed conversations and you can start to be consultative and not just reactive.
And we're seeing that a lot. I mean, the people I feel like who are winning the customer experience space
Mhm.
are being much more strategic about the conversations that they're having. They're not wasting their time on things that don't necessarily matter. They're focused on proactivity and being in the right place at the right time. But that's not as easy as we're really making it sound, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to there's a lot of work put into building those systems, to your
Mhm.
point earlier, but spending an extra 20, 30 minutes building something so you can save yourself 5 minutes a day every day forever.
Yeah. You as a CSM, if you're an individual contributor, if you're a CSM right now, you will be doing yourself a disservice if you're not investing some of your weekly time into artificial intelligence, learning how to work with it, learning Zapier to integrate it into different things and flexing that creative muscle of what could you do? Because A, you're creating your own tooling that can help you. You don't have to wait for an ops team to put something together for you. But B, you're developing this kind of more strategic skill set and this more kind of way of thinking about not just your accounts, but just in general how everything comes together, which really sets you up well for leadership or operations positions in the future. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
I love it. So you're obviously very well connected in the customer success space. When you think about the people that you know or the people that you follow, the thought leaders you listen to, who else should we be talking to?
Stino, man, I love that guy. He is doing some incredible things on his own podcast. So I'm not just like singling out podcast hosts here, but he's a voice for the CSM, and a great guy as well. So he's really really good. Um, I do love the things that Rachel Proven puts out routinely. Jan Young puts out a bunch of stuff routinely that is really oriented, yes, on the leadership front, but then also on the individual and kind of career growth front as well. Um, yeah, those are the ones that kind of come to mind. I've got a couple of team members who are uh, really good at like task management and stuff. One specifically is, I'll call her out, is Christina Drake. She lives in Vitali's task management system, and her tasks are super clean. But as like an example of somebody who's like really in it to where they can go enjoy their weekend and then come in on Monday with a fresh set of eyes and hit the go button. It's really cool.
I love it. Okay, put on your inner influencer hat. What is one tool, trick, secret, hack, whatever that we need to know in order to be successful?
I mean, the sleeper we kind of already touched on, but Perplexity, man, if you use Perplexity to do your account research and to also do some spying on your executive stakeholders, that's like huge. You can get a wealth of information on who your accounts are by using Perplexity. Those of you who aren't aware, just go start using Perplexity instead of Google, and you'll thank me later.
I have actively switched over. I don't even go to
Yeah,
Google search anymore. It
totally.
doesn't give me any value, or it gives me wrong answers only. So,
Totally. Yeah.
okay, last but not least, Alex, if they are really connecting with you, if people want to find you,
Mm.
where can they connect with you online?
Best thing is obviously on LinkedIn, but also digitalcustomersuccess.com. That's where you'll find the podcast, some articles. There's a digital CX maturity assessment that you can go take for yourself, which is cool. It'll rate how your organization is doing on the digital success maturity model that I built. But that's basically it. LinkedIn, digitalcustomersuccess.com.
Awesome. This was great.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
If you enjoyed today's episode, let's connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found value here, share the podcast with your network. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us inspire more leaders to join the movement.